welcome to the Mariah Jean Fit YouTube channel. I'm Coach Mariah. Make sure you like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos as much as possible so we can reach a broader audience. We appreciate your support and enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to another vlog on YouTube and podcast on Spotify by the Fit Minds podcast. Coach Mariah here. Today we're going to be diving into the topic of setting micro goals for a macro focus. Now we've all heard about goal setting if you're wanting to achieve really big things in your life, and we would look at that as being anything from saving for a house to achieving your goal physique to maybe doing a competition of some sort. It literally could look like anything in your life currently that you know is going to take a lot of work. And that's exactly why we need to focus on the smaller, probably meaningless tasks, the way that we see them, to try and achieve this really momentous accomplishment that we are looking forward to and we often get really motivated towards achieving. So, how many of us have set these massive goals for ourselves and then found that we are not actually doing anything to accomplish them, and we're not sure why. Why do you really want to achieve something, but yet nothing that you do seems to get you there, or perhaps you haven't really been making enough of a plan. So it all comes down to planning, and if you think that you're a disorganized or not very structured person, there is some good news for you. You can be. And with anything large in life that you want to accomplish, you cannot just show up and wing it. You're not going to be able to buy a house tomorrow without saving. You're not going to be able to compete without obviously putting in the work towards that competition, the weeks and the days and the months of hard work that go behind a bodybuilding show. And you're certainly not going to be able to do anything else in life that you're wanting to accomplish that takes lots and lots of little, very difficult, very frustrating tasks unless you make a plan to do that, to actually put it in your diary, to actually look at your diary and the like. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to dive into what a micro goal looks like, okay, and what macro goals look like. Obviously, the elephant in the room says that a micro goal is something that is much smaller and more achievable, maybe less exciting than a macro goal, in that you can probably contribute towards these micro goals daily. That might not take very long to achieve it. It might be something simple like signing up to a gym, okay, so that's a micro goal or a micro task towards a macro focus of getting into shape, wanting to feel more confident about yourself. That can be a big goal as well, improving your self-confidence. You might think that's a small goal, but it's actually a really big goal because it's a project that requires lots of moving parts. So a micro goal is a smaller goal, task, or a checkpoint required to achieve a larger goal that contributes to the larger picture. Sometimes it can be monotonous and repetitive, and you can feel like you're getting bored, ticking those boxes every day. It feels boring because there is nothing that is overly exciting about achieving something smaller daily. Not for most people, right? You're fascinated with the big things, but the small things seem to be harder to achieve and get excited for. It is like the bricks and mortar of a house, right? So it's what you need to build a house. You can be fascinated with the house and the big, beautiful finished project, but you do need the bricks and mortar. You need the pieces and the action required to build the house. They are the building blocks that make up the big goal, the big end goal, the big, gold at the end of the rainbow, the exciting, the thing that you need to look forward to every day, the motivating, big project that you are telling everybody about. And we've all got them. Everybody has these big goals. I don't think I know a single person who doesn't have a big goal. And I find that people who don't have big goals or big dreams can often get really lost, because as human beings, we like to grow, we like to learn, we like to change. And often without that, we feel stagnant. We do feel bored, but we can often feel really unfulfilled if we don't have direction in our lives. So they're often overlooked, but these are the tiny, finer details. Okay, this is actually the most important part of achieving a big goal, is focusing on the small things. The list of duties required to accomplish a larger, often more elusive goal usually require persistent effort and patience to finish the micro goals due to the lower feeling of reward, okay? So we don't feel as much reward by going to the gym every single day, those small contributions towards the big goal. There'll be some days where you don't feel like training or exercising or going for that walk, and that can often be where people slide off their major goal because of the smaller level of reward that they get from these small micro goals. Whether it's saving for a house, obviously, as I mentioned, working towards something big, whether it's financial, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, and often it's really good to have a couple of these different big goals because that can then set you up for the next one. Whether you have a career goal, it's really beneficial to have some sort of direction for each major component and part of your life. Competing in a bodybuilding show obviously was one of the ones I mentioned, and this one I think I see very commonly that people get fascinated with competing in a bodybuilding show, but it all requires effort. The macro goal sits at the center of our wildest dreams, but it still requires effort through smaller, less enticing responsibilities and requirements. The micro plan, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today. What do we do to achieve a micro plan? And probably one of the common mistakes I see when people are trying to achieve these major momentous goals and they talk about them, they get excited for them, but that's pretty much as far as it goes. You will probably know somebody like this in your life, or it might be you. You might feel personally attacked by this vlog and you might think, yeah, there are some huge things that I've missed out on achieving in my life, or that I haven't done yet, or that I said I wanted to do years ago, that I just don't know why. I still don't know why I'm not able to achieve them. It's probably because you're getting distracted, you're not really focusing on the micro goals, and you're not making a plan towards that bigger goal. And also fear, okay? So fear is a big part of it as well. So common mistakes I see with goal setting and focusing on the macro without a micro plan is making or announcing a big plan in theory, but never fully committing to it, okay? So the I'm going to do this, I want to do this, without the pressing action of doing, without actually doing. So this is where we see that people have big goals, but they are absolutely nothing without that micro plan, without those tiny little pieces to put together that big puzzle. Changing direction 50 times to avoid having to actually put effort into the goal you set out for in the first place. Do you think, if you were to reflect upon the last few years, that you've had some big goals that seem to have just disappeared, that you've somewhat buried, that you've covered up with other goals, or that you've distracted yourself with another goal? And it's kind of like that shiny object syndrome, where things start to get boring, or repetitive, or monotonous, or you are struggling in your life and you actually drop the big goal because it seems like it's too hard right now, or that it's just not very exciting, that something else seems more exciting. And this is where you see people kind of go from, maybe it might be that they want to prepare for a bodybuilding show, and then all of a sudden they don't want to do that and they want to do an Ironman instead. And then they say, oh, but I also want to get a promotion at my new job, but I want to move house as well, and but then I want to do this. And there's all these conflicting major goals. And so instead of achieving any of them, they achieve none of them, okay? This is where you see that you end up achieving none of your goals very efficiently, and you end up just being fascinated with the idea of having these things. And that's where you can often see that, people who do this in life will look at other people's lives and be envious and think, I wish I could have that. And that's that whole shiny object syndrome coming back in again, where they go, I want that, that's going to be my new big goal. And they very quickly forget about the old goal and the commitments required to achieve it. So this is where you go around in circles for this cycle. The changing direction is something I've seen quite a lot with clients, where they'll change direction probably about 4 to 5, maybe 6 times in a year. And they end up back at square one because they didn't contribute enough time, enough patience, enough effort towards the big goal that they initially set out to achieve, due to that fascination with things feeling good all the time, or the exciting thing that distracts them from that big goal. Struggling with being distracted from the original goal and simply going around in circles actually helps you achieve pretty much nothing except the bare basics. So, you're surviving, you might be paying your bills, you might be maybe visiting friends and family every now and then. You are just ticking the basic boxes to get through the week and the year, but none of the things that you actually wanted to achieve, for that year. If you're finding towards, the end of this year of 2022, I didn't achieve anything I wanted to, and I feel really disheartened, and I'm just gonna do it in 2023 now, and I feel like I didn't get to the place I wanted to be this year, and I'm just going to reset and do a whole new year next year. And the reality check of the situation is that it's not the year, it's the method that you used. You cannot simply go into the next year with this, I'm excited to achieve my big goals attitude again. I can't wait to do this in 2023, and I can't wait for a whole brand new year to work with, but you're not actually working on how or what you're doing in your mind. Your method isn't changing, you're not looking at planning. You've got all these big goals written down. Maybe you haven't got them written down and they're just in your head, and that's probably one of your biggest mistakes as well. And basically, you'll probably have a repeat of the same year, previous to this one. So if you find that's happening year after year after year, you're not achieving those big goals, you still haven't bought the house, or you still haven't, committed to that career change, whatever it might be because you're not actually actioning anything. There's no action involved, there's no plan involved, and there's no movement. So another mistake I see is taking on too many big goals at once and actioning none of them efficiently. Okay, so obviously, as I mentioned, if you are scattered and getting distracted, what can happen as well along this process is that you don't only get distracted by another goal, but you end up taking on that goal as well. And so I've seen many people who have got these big goals. They might have 6 or 8 things on the go. I'm pretty bad for this. I actually am studying at the moment. I've got another course I'm studying next year, which is going on top of my current graduate diploma. And, running a full-time business, fully booked. I've also just got a new puppy, for anyone who's listening. And we're looking at buying a house next year. But I've tried to break them up a little bit, scatter them a little bit more than I used to. What I used to do was overcommit myself. So I used to say, well, you know what? We just got engaged. Let's get married next year, and let's buy a house as well, and let's also compete next year, and let's have the puppy as well. And so it's this overcommitment to these big goals and these shiny objects where we can start to see burnout, and where we start to drop some of those goals that we had previously, or we actually forget about them, or it feels too hard because why? Because we've overcommitted. So taking on too many big goals, okay, and not actually thinking about what you probably could do chronologically and what makes more sense to break up and not take too much on. Not seeking help, trying to achieve a large goal on your own and feeling lost, confused, or getting stuck and giving up. So again, this is kind of where you make a goal, you say, I really want to do this, and you talk to people about it, and they go, oh, I've got some great ideas, I've done that before, I've got great success with it, would you like, to sit down and talk about it? Oh, no. Oh, no, I've got this, Have also seen many people take on a fitness journey or a nutrition journey. They've done it on their own for 2, 3, 5 years, and they've said, I'm still not where I want to be. I'm just not quite where I want to be. And I say to them, why don't you get a coach? Coaches are actually pretty affordable. They're actually cheaper than the amount you'd be spending on takeaway weekly, which you wouldn't be spending if you had a coach. And when you get a coach, you end up actually investing in yourself long term. So you get to your goals faster when you have help. If you don't seek out help, if you don't seek out support when you're wanting to achieve these big goals, if you don't accept some support, which is usually coming from those who have done really well with the big goals that you've got, you will probably find yourself wasting a whole lot of time. No single person on this earth hasn't learnt something from somebody else. And so if you have a big goal, it's really important to have a support person. If you have a look at coaches, they usually have a coach or a very strong support person in their life. And you think to yourself, why would a coach need a coach? It's because doing things solo, although very rewarding, can actually take a lot longer than what they need to. And when you do it with somebody, you have support from someone, their job is to step in when you don't feel driven, not to motivate you, but certainly to remind you of why you started and also to give you some reassurance. So, not getting help, not seeking help, big problem, and then obviously you get confused, you feel lost, and then you feel ashamed and you don't want to ask for help. So very important, ask for help. There's no silly questions when it comes to somebody who's an expert in their field. If you ask them, you'd be surprised how much further you could go. So why do we make such momentous goals without actually tackling them? Why? Why do we do that? Why do people, it's almost like a form of procrastination, but like long-term procrastination of your life. So it's kind of like, I really want to achieve this big thing, but not doing anything about it. And that can be very frustrating, especially if you're stuck in that cycle. So much of it comes from the idea that it is motivating to have a new adventure or a project to work on due to the fascination and joy we can envision from the end result. So everybody's done that. Everybody's thought about the exciting thing that's ahead of us that we really want, but we then neglect the filling. It's like looking at the outside of a birthday cake and going, yum, I love the icing, but I don't want to eat the insides, or I don't want to bake the cake. So obviously a cake is not a cake without the insides, it's just icing, okay? But cakes look pretty on the outside, everything looks, really enticing. It could be anything on the inside as well. This is the whole point, is that when we focus on the surface, or we focus on, it's like the cover of a book, or we focus on the exciting accomplishment that we get at the end of something, but we don't actually focus on the getting, we don't focus on the doing, we don't focus on the painful parts, the difficult parts, the frustrating parts, that's when we, are basically just dreaming. We're just dreaming about what we want to achieve. We're just talking about it, and we can often then be seen as dreamers, not doers, right? And there's nothing more disappointing in your own life is to dream but not do. Making unrealistic timelines is another one for goals. Okay, so if you make unrealistic timelines for your goals, you say to yourself, I want to lose 8 kilos in 8 weeks. I know that most people think that's a really achievable goal, and I'm going to tell you, as a female especially, it's not. Losing 8 kilos in 8 weeks is just stupid. It's just pointless. But it's not going to happen. Probably the only time I've ever seen this happen is on The Biggest Loser, and even then it's really bad for these people. Their metabolisms, just in general as well, their mental health. 8 weeks is very quick, so there's not a lot of, they don't solidify a lot of behaviors there as well, because 8 weeks is not long enough for them to learn new habits. It's just all about very extreme measures. But not just that, women lose body fat slower than what men do. Okay, so when we have these very numerical goals and numerical timelines, it's almost like we're limiting ourselves to a certain extent with some things, and then on the other hand putting an unrealistic amount of pressure on ourselves as well. So it's like saying to yourself, I'm going to run 100 meters in 9 seconds. I want to run 100 meters in 9 seconds. Now that's possible, sure, but is it possible for every single person and every single person's set of circumstances? Hell no, right? And genetics? Hell no. Right? So if we set this really unrealistic goal and unrealistic timeline for ourselves, we then end up with nothing but disappointment when we're not achieving that in the set timeline, and that can often lead to also giving up, also throwing in the towel. We can often end up being so disappointed with not achieving something in a set amount of time that we just don't even keep going. We just go, well, you know what, it's been 3 months and I've only lost a couple of kilos and I'm just really disappointed in myself, and that's it. Not thinking about the fact that you've also learnt new habits. There were some mistakes along the way. There were some challenges along the way. You still have lost 3 kilos. You didn't gain that back. And this is what I see very commonly in a fitness journey, is that, my clients, new clients, other coaches' clients seem to have these very numerical focused measurements and timelines and very stringent, strict set of rules around when they think they should accomplish something by, and not just that, but not understanding or justifying why they've set those rules. Where did that come from? Where did your 8 kilos in 8 weeks come from? Where did your goal to lose 3 dress sizes in a year come from? Are you thinking about what happens in the space of a year? Are you thinking about the fact that you might have kids, or the fact that you might be working full time and that you are not a person who can just go through life and that's all you do is just focus on your fat loss journey? You're going to have other things along the way. There may be health challenges, we don't know. But are you factoring in the challenges that come up along the way? And this unrealistic amount of pressure can often certainly apply to those who are perfectionists. So with major goal setting and big goals, that can almost feel like a complete grenade that you're just throwing into your life. It's like, this big goal I have, and then I've made a mistake, or I didn't achieve it in the time that I set out to. Oh well, I'm just going to throw a bomb in or a grenade in and just blow the whole thing up. And so this is something I see quite often, is that people get disheartened or annoyed at themselves, and then that's it. Big goal gone. Forgetting goals you've set for yourself as you haven't written them down, made a plan, or even given yourself reminders towards accomplishing tasks on the plan. So I think this is the biggest one that probably makes up why we don't achieve major goals, because we're not focusing on what's required, the actual plan required. How many times have you set a big goal for yourself? And at the moment, for me, it's saving for a house, which I'm doing very well at. But how many times have you set a big goal for yourself and not set checkpoints and not set a plan and not started to revise, your current lifestyle? Because if you're wanting to achieve that goal, you're going to have to change what you're doing currently, right? You can't just keep doing what you're doing currently and achieve that goal. It's not just going to land in your lap. But what do you have to change in order for that goal to be closer to you? How are we going to bring that closer to you? You will have to action change in your life. And so often people will have these major goals, they talk about them, they might write them down, or they may not write them down. There are going to be goals that are in your head currently that you've not written down anywhere. I know that. You've not written them down anywhere. You haven't even spoken to anybody about them. If you really want to achieve them and they keep returning back into your mind, maybe write them down. Put them on a whiteboard, put them on a vision board, but have them somewhere that you can see them so that they are something that you cannot forget. It's very easy to forget something if you don't write it down, just as we forget some memories or moments in time. We go back over photos and we go, oh, that's right. That thing happened. I remember when that happened, but it jots our memory. So how are we meant to stick to a goal if it is just a thought, if it's just in our minds and we don't actually have anything written on paper? There's no plan, there's no sort of even thought into it. So you also need to obviously, give yourself reminders towards accomplishing those tasks. So the big mistake I see is that people they know that there's a plan, they know they've got to do things, and they have to action these small tasks, but they don't write them down, they don't remind themselves, and very easily forget, oh, that's right, I forgot to do my meal prep, or, I was meant to go to the gym and I started doing something else instead. Whatever it is that you're struggling with, that you seem to keep missing the mark with because you're not writing it down, there's no reminders, your brain is not, hardwired or fine-tuned to remember every small thing that you need to do. That's why you have to set reminders and write things down and have a planner and start to use it and be habitual with using that, because the brain requires prompts. It requires little keywords. It requires something to remind you of what you're doing in your day as well. That's how we get through things. That's how we get to appointments. That's how you achieve big goals. Poor organization through mostly avoidance and ignorance, distraction, or lack of focus. Probably the most frustrating one for me that I see is that when people are they're not just disorganized, but they almost avoid and ignore the tasks or the work required to achieve that goal. So they come to me and they say, look, I want to compete, or I want to lose 10 kilos of body fat, or I want to be ready for a wedding in June next year. And then I mention, okay, well, we're going to have to do X, Y, Z. We're going to have to change this. You're going to have to sign up to a gym. You're going to need plenty of equipment to work with. And you're also going to need to tick these boxes as well. Okay, so this is the big picture. And when you look at it, they're actually really simple tasks. They're very simple tasks. But in that, we then see the unfold of terrible organization, basically, usually in the beginning, very normal, but where people just aren't getting any of this done because their eyeballs are somewhere else. They're looking at other things, they're doing other things, everything except what they need to do to achieve their goal, and then also avoiding and ignoring. So it's kind of like, that's too hard, I'll just do that later. I don't feel like doing that now, so I'll just do that later. And distraction and lack of focus comes from a avoidance of the difficult things, right? When you are not focused on something, it's usually because you don't enjoy it, or you are distracted by stress, you're distracted by other invasive thoughts, etc. So this is my most frustrating one, is that people get distracted, they distract themselves, they avoid or they ignore because they know in the back of their minds that this is going to take effort. Getting frustrated when the smaller tasks are not enjoyable, are difficult or repetitive. Again, very common, hear this all the time. This is boring, I don't like this exercise, do I have to do this many steps? I don't like drinking this much water. The list goes on, I don't really need 9 hours sleep, I can survive on 5, it's wasting my time, like the list goes on. Reasons why these small tasks to achieve the larger goal are annoying. Of course they're annoying, okay? If you were to do things that you were comfortable doing every day for the rest of your life, do you think you would achieve anything that you know that you need or want to? No, okay? If I did what I was comfortable for the rest of my life every day, it would be going to the beach. It would be probably eating twice a day, because eating frequently I know is good for my blood sugar, and obviously I don't get as hangry, but it's annoying for me preparing meals. You know, nutritionists who, I get annoyed at doing meal prep. Of course I do. Do I still do it? Yes, I do. Getting frustrated at the small, repetitive, monotonous, boring tasks of the day and normalizing, getting instant gratification, etc., is where people get stuck in these loops, because they are avoiding again and running from things that are hard. Okay, and this probably comes from something that has been a learnt behavior, but not enjoying the journey and not enjoying every part of the journey, unfortunately, is a reality. That is exactly what happens when you have big goals, when you want to achieve something long term, is that there are going to be components that you often don't enjoy, that you don't want to show up for, that you despise, that become almost like the bane of your existence. That is the micro goals and the micro tasks. They are shitty and frustrating and crappy, and all in all, really not the most enticing, exciting, invigorating experiences, because they're small and they seem meaningless, but they obviously add up to the big picture. And then obviously the final mistake is instant gratification over delayed gratification. I reference this in so many podcasts, but basically people getting fascinated with having something now. I want something now. I want an instant fix. This is where people often reach for alcohol or drugs or addictions, because they're not thinking about long term, I will get a benefit to my health. Long term, instead of spending money today on something that will give me a second of dopamine, that I'm going to actually experience success. I'm going to experience financial freedom. I'm going to experience less stress long term, because these very small instant gratification moments that we give into become the sum of our life, and that delayed gratification is never experienced. So we feel this constant emptiness because the big stuff, we never arrive. That destination was never seen. And so that's where you see that a lot of dreamers get frustrated, because they're not realizing all of this instant gratification that I keep settling for is actually sabotaging my delayed gratification. And trust me, the big shit is so worth it. I became a really tight spender. I think it was probably around the age of 21 or so, when at that time I didn't have a job for 3 months, when I was quite unwell, and I was in and out of hospital a couple of times, and I was forced to be really tight with my spending. And I'm still like that to this day. I will probably go shopping once a year for new clothes, and it's not a big shop. I always make sure that I'm, only buying things that I really like, and I donate my clothes as well. I don't let my wardrobe get out of control, etc. But as far as spending goes, I don't look at money and buying things daily or weekly as something that's rewarding for me. I see it as something that we do when it's necessary, when we know that we need things, and if we want things, thinking twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times about whether we actually want that. So a lot of this delayed gratification comes from settling for nothing really super exciting on a daily basis, but certainly waiting for that really big aha moment where it sends chills down your spine and you have the best day of your life. And that could be as a result of anything, effort that you put into a relationship that might be very difficult, that eventually it might be that you have, found a really good space with each other. It could be saving for a house. It could be that, short term, that you're going without some of those, finer things in life. I stopped getting my lashes done and stopped getting my nails done because I knew that would take away from the money that I would like to save towards the house. And so this is where we start to dive into how do we achieve our micro goals, right? How do we actually... Cool. I know the mistakes we can make, but how do we achieve the micro goals? How do we achieve our macro through our micro goals? How do we get this big thing that we've always wanted, or the big things that we've always wanted, through dedicating ourselves to the small tasks daily? So think of long-term goals as the finish line, and your micro goals are your footsteps on the ground, okay, in a race. One after the other, but you must pace yourself along the way. The big goal is the mountaintop, okay? The climb and how you achieve the nitty-gritty between becomes micro tasks that you set for yourself and each leg of that journey. Does that make sense? So as I said, the gold at the end of the rainbow, you know, that pot of gold that we're looking towards will take effort. We're going to have to get there. So that's where the micro comes in. All of these little pieces that come together to create this big dream. Start by writing your major macro goals down, as I mentioned earlier. This may be 1, 5, or 10-year goals. You don't have to call them goals, you call them anything. At one point I changed the word goal to focus because for me, I like the word focus. It gives me something to head towards. I think as a goal, it looks a little bit more like a target in my mind. So a focus for me is basically just redirecting my vision back to that focus. You may have many goals, but have them set out in order of when you would like to achieve them, okay? And this can shuffle and rearrange depending on lots of different life changes, but make sure that you have them written down currently in an order that you'd like to achieve them. You know, if it's digitally, it makes it a lot easier because you can change that, but make a vision board. As I said, have it on a whiteboard, in your notes, somewhere where you will see it as a constant reminder of what you actually want. Think about which of these goals will require effort in the first few months, so in the next few months ahead of you, to a year. Okay, so if you look at those big goals, what's going to require action now? What's going to require some sort of effort now to 1 year? Because that's where you're going to need to start to plan. We need to plan the year, we need to plan the months ahead. You can't just wing it in life if you want to achieve these big goals. If it is saving for the house, then you'll have to revise your budget and action change with finances. Okay, so see how this involves change? Always I use these words, these action words. See how it starts with the micro goals and then planning towards the macro. Always. Never starts with a macro. Sure, the thought starts with the macro, but all of the action starts with the micro. And obviously, what you do daily, consistently, matters. So rely on habit making instead of heroic efforts all in one day. What can you do or change daily that may seem small for now, but will actually add up over time? So it may seem insignificant, but something like increasing your water intake, something like trying to get some more incidental steps in, parking your car a little bit further away from your work every day. See how these are small habit changes? Could actually help you achieve something long term. So it could help you achieve improving your health and well-being and your concentration levels. It could help you get a higher step count towards your fitness goal. This is where we start to break down little solutions-focused, problem-solving, types of goals and tasks that can help you achieve this big picture. Instead of thinking about every reason why you can't achieve the big picture, think of little reasons why you can. Little tiny little changes. It could be getting a treadmill at home to help get some more steps in. It could be, getting on that treadmill and watching movies while you walk, making those small life changes. Obviously thinking about that chronological order and prioritizing is a big part of goal setting and micro goals. Do you need to join a bigger gym with more equipment before getting a coach? Are you in a really tiny gym and if you sign up with a coach and you think, shit, I've just wasted the first 4 weeks because I can't do anything that's on my program and I haven't got a lot to work with here, What is the most important task on the list of tasks due for the day from the micro planning list? So if you've got these big goals and you're breaking them down into all these small tasks, so you've got a whole second planning thing that has all the small tasks required for the big goals, what can you plug in from those big lists of micro tasks into your day-to-day? Could it be something like, if you're picking something up from the shops, it could be that if you train from home that you need an exercise ball for whatever reason. And so you might write that on your list of tasks for the day because you can't start your training program without the exercise ball. It sounds super simple, but doing this daily, plugging in small tasks daily from your micro plan is actually how you slowly tick things off. I'll use the example with my university studies. We always have a really large chunk of study to do. It might range from 1 to 4 chapters, 1 to 5 chapters, plus maybe 15 lectures or so, and then there's the corresponding exams. And so what I will do is in chronological order, I will write on my little list, 10 pages from chapter 1, right, for a day. And then another day where I can see that I've got time on my day, it's in my notes. Oh yeah, I'm not doing too many things that day, another 10 pages from chapter 1. And so we slowly start to almost, tack away at that goal. It's like We're not looking at how much we have to do. We're just looking at the small pieces, and also looking at the timeline. If with uni, you've got a timeline to work with. So let's say you've got 3 months to finish, a module or a subject or whatever it might be. And you think, okay, of this whole subject, if you really want to get numerical with anything, how do I divide this up? In the first month, can I tackle this part of it? In the second month, can I tackle this part of it? In the third month, can I tackle this part of it? Instead of looking at it like the bigger project is super overwhelming and then avoiding it altogether. So breaking it down into more achievable tasks can actually make it less scary. And chronological orders, always chronological or prioritizing. So obviously keep lists, but don't let them take over your life. Keep them where you know you will read them. So mine is in my notes in my phone. I've literally got this vlog written on a note. And I've got my groceries in my shopping, so I check that one once a week to make sure if there's anything I need on my grocery list every week. I just plug it back in again every time I run out. I've got a list of updates I need for work, just anything that's in order of what I need to do as it comes through as well. And then obviously I can do that on the days that I have admin, including my content. My content creation is in there, but I have a separate planning sheet for my content, right? And so that will be the calendar for the week. And then I'll pull from that and then actually put that into my content creation list. So the order I need to do them in. To-do list is another one I've got in my notes. So I've got titles of each day that I have ahead of me for 3 weeks in advance. I've mentioned this in other podcasts, and I plug everything in from my calendar so that as a snapshot, I can actually see what's in front of me for the day after day after day after day. And when someone says, hey, do you want to go for a walk next week on a Wednesday? I'm like, oh shit, I've got a whole day of uni that day. Sorry, I've got a whole day of uni that day. I can't make it. And this is where we can actually avoid getting ourselves distracted from the big goals, because again, there's another point I have in here, is that you're going to have to say no to anything, or at least many things that don't align with your big goal many times, and not feel guilty for it, okay? If you have a goal to compete, saying yes to attending another birthday party at the start of your prep isn't aligned with your end goal. It's just not. And saying yes out of guilt is saying no to your goals. So a lot of this micro focus and micro goal setting is actually about getting yourself back to why you started. What's the end goal? What do I actually want? Do I need to give into this small thing now? Thinking about how much your daily efforts are actually contributing to the larger goals. So the next point is setting reminders for things that you put off or forget. So if it's in your phone, you're not going to forget it if you have a loud alarm going off, okay? Set multiple reminders if you need to. It could be something like reminding yourself to drink water. It could be something like, having a reminder for a consult or a meeting, having another reminder the day before, having a reminder for all your bills as well is important. But write things down. Please get into the habit of writing a lot more down than you currently are. Don't overcommit to too many projects, as I said earlier, okay? So stagger your work or your study or your workload. For example, if you're starting a fitness journey to lose body fat, maybe think twice about booking that around the world trip at the same time, okay? Think about what's viable. Or if you're thinking about studying, try to factor that in, perhaps when your work schedule isn't booked at 70 hours a week. And if it is booked at 70 hours a week, maybe think about the idea that that role isn't right for you if you want to also study. It's just not possible to fit that all in. So reducing your hours down might be the thing that you need to do before you obviously start your study. Set up your environment to optimize your goals realistically. On that note, setting up your environment to optimize your goals is so important, so that you don't remain stuck in the forever, I can't because X, Y, Z. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't go to the gym because I work too much. I can't, the list goes on. I can't save for a house because my rent is too expensive. Okay, is there a way that you could save money there? Could you get somebody move in with you? Could you look at, when you end the lease, moving into a place that isn't as expensive or isn't as big? Are there ways that you could save money in a financial situation instead of focusing on why you currently can't, why you're stuck? And with work or with your uni or with whatever circumstance in life, what is currently holding you back? Excellent. How can you change that so that you can actually action those goals that you want to? Start to think of your life and time as puzzle pieces slotting in instead of cramming things into a day. Okay, so don't try and cram as much as possible into a day. Just think about logically, how much can I fit into this day towards those big goals? And maybe putting too much in there is just going to overwhelm you. Think about what can, should, and needs to be done today. Okay, can, should, and needs to be done. no matter how enjoyable. And what can wait until tomorrow or the next day or even the next week, depending on the importance of the task regarding the end goal you have. So the more you find yourself getting distracted, take that distraction that you know probably isn't that important and plug it into your next week of planning, because you've got some more important shit to do this week. It's probably going to suck. You're probably not going to enjoy it, but you're going to feel obviously better in the long run because you're contributing towards that big goal. Take setbacks into consideration, as I mentioned. If you have a goal to lose 20 kilos in a year, ask yourself why it's so specific. You know, why have you made it exactly 20 kilos? Have you not thought about what could I achieve in a year despite what happens? How do I get closer to achieving more of that? You know, that type of thinking, not thinking in reverse where it's, I've got this big goal for myself and if I don't achieve it, I'm a failure. Obviously, if it takes longer or shorter to achieve this goal, it's okay too. You may lose 20 kilos sooner than a year. It may be something that just happens because you fall in love with the process. But whatever that looks like, it doesn't always have to be this very stringent timeline, unless obviously you're in something like a competition prep. Normalize setbacks as a part of achieving a goal and take them into account. Always take into account the fact that every fucking body gets sick, okay? Everybody gets sick. Everybody has bills. Everybody has shit things that happen in their life to them. Obviously, it doesn't make it any easier when shit things happen. But if you look back at what you were doing towards your goal and you feel disappointed with yourself because you didn't achieve it in a set amount of time and you feel like it's complete write-off, think about everything that happened, think about what was in your control, think about what was out of your control, and then reflect upon how you can improve from there, okay? But don't blame yourself for shit that just literally happened and that you had no hand in, and you can say that with conviction. Obviously, reflect on ways you can improve your adherence to your micro goals. This is a big one. So reflect on ways that you can get better at sticking to this thing called habit-changing, habit-making behavior. What can you do daily that becomes habitual? Is it setting an alarm for your gym workout with a message so that you don't keep putting it off? It could be something like go and train, and then maybe another one in 10 minutes, stop avoiding your training, and maybe another one in 10 minutes, you'll feel better after this, okay? So set yourself up with these habitual behaviors, because most people look at goal setting and think it's all about tasks and checklists, but a lot of it's actually about habits. So for me, getting to the gym means getting into my gym gear, because that's one thing that I know that if I get out of my gym gear, I feel silly once I've got it on. Okay, and then also putting on some music and having something to eat. So that's my habit that I have ingrained in order to then go and achieve this small micro goal towards my physique and obviously my mental health and my physical health and my career. So see how all of that exciting, wonderful, vibrant part of the big goal can be achieved through these pretty boring habits that we instill daily. So is it prepping your meals on a Sunday and putting aside the time to do so? So if someone says, hey, I'd love to catch up on the weekend, what are you doing? And you already know you've got plans on Sunday morning, and Sunday afternoon you want to do your meal prep, and someone's just messaged you out of the blue on a Saturday and said, have you got spare time? I just want to go for a coffee. And it might be right in the middle of the time when you wanted to meal prep. Think about that, and think about, unfortunately, sometimes when we say yes to other people all the time, we end up saying no to ourselves, and then we didn't get our meal prep done because we had to be there for somebody else. And the thing is that you don't have to drop everything that you're doing in your life for someone else, unless it's an emergency, obviously, but be okay with the idea that the coffee doesn't have to happen that day. It can actually happen on a day that suits you best. Don't be so flexible with when you are able to do and not do things for yourself. Don't bend and twist from that. So every Saturday morning I do my chores now. I used to do it Fridays, but I do it Saturdays now. It's literally changed from Friday to Saturday in the space of 5 years, okay? I do all my house cleaning or whatever is left over after the cleaner, because she does a big clean every fortnight. But I do like basic house cleaning, and then obviously my washing and whatever needs to be done for meal prep. It's all done Saturday morning. So it's the tasks, the meaningless tasks that I get out of the way so that I can then enjoy my weekend. And no matter what, I never book anything in over the top of that. So if someone wants to go for breakfast on a Saturday morning on a rare occasion, I might go, yep, sure, no worries. But then what I will do is, as soon as I've had breakfast, I come home, I do the meal prep, I do the chores, and then I go to the gym. So shuffling things around is okay, but if you can't fit it into the day, it's okay to say no, I can't fit it into the day, and not have to give a reason exactly why. So on that note, get used to the meaningless tasks that feel boring. Give yourself internal affirmation or share your small wins, accomplishments, literally just the small things. It is really like that. with your coach, with your journal, or your friends. If you write it down, you can put a tick next to it. You can feel like you're crossing things off. That gives you a sense of accomplishment. And when you talk to other people about it, oh, I did this, I did this small thing, or like I saved up another $20,000, or, this week I learned how to do I got one pull-up, right, at the gym. These small accomplishments is what actually fuels the fire towards the big end goal and helps you feel tiny senses of joy, I would say, because it's getting excited for the small things that gets you through to the big, exciting end project, coming to that grand finale. So when you celebrate the small wins, it encourages you to persevere towards the bigger picture, okay? So it becomes less boring when you get excited for the small stuff. And often that does mean that you will have to talk to other people about it, or that you need to journal. If you're not a person who likes to talk to other people, you journal and then you read over that, and that can give you joy. It can actually make you smile in the moment. How many times have you written down something that you were proud of yourself for, and you've read it and you've smiled? Audit your time and contribution towards your goal each week. This is a big one. So if you found it's been a couple of weeks, this happens with my uni sometimes, it might have been 2 weeks and I've done no study, and I might turn to my partner, my fiance, and say, shit, I haven't done any study for 2 weeks. I'm gonna get some study in tonight, okay? Whatever we're doing the next few days, I've just gotta put some of that on pause and get some study done. Because even if you don't want to, if you find yourself constantly avoiding it, you've got to audit that. You have to check yourself constantly with your goals. If you haven't been contributing anything towards it, stop asking yourself why you don't have it yet, or why you're not any closer to getting it. So focus on achieving the small things. As I mentioned, it really is about that. The big things are actually about the small things. And it sounds really strange, but big things are just the big picture. It's the finished painting, it's the finished project, it's the standing back and admiring what you've worked towards, but that's the key words. You've worked towards that. The project didn't just appear, it didn't just happen. And anyone who's achieved something great in their lives will be able to swear by that, I put in all this work. People say, oh, you looked amazing, and you did really well with that, and you're killing it at life, and your business is thriving. And it's like, yeah, there was a lot behind that. There was so much, the semantics. So understand that with every big project that you've seen someone achieve, there is a whole lot of grind. There is a whole lot of tiny little meaningless, pointless tasks that they achieve daily, but they get it done because they know that that's what it takes. That's what it takes for a big goal, is tiny little pieces. It is literally like putting together a mosaic artwork. It takes lots of little pieces of glass to put together a masterpiece. So obviously, it would look like maybe reading a chapter of your textbook every day, as I mentioned, putting aside $200 to $300 a week for a house, getting daily exercise, finding balance with your eating daily, reflecting upon the day, looking at how you can improve from day to day, not necessarily looking at, oh my God, the whole 6 months was a write-off type of thing. So reflecting constantly and being able to check yourself as often as possible to then set these new little mini goals and micro goals so it's more achievable, that it feels like it's not as scary, and that you can focus on those small efforts towards the bigger picture. Don't overthink it or back out of something just because the long haul looks scary. It always does. Okay? Especially for things like study and saving money. Like they're such big projects. And also with your physique, if you know, I've got a long way to go, standing there and going, I've got a long way to go, isn't actually going to get you any closer to the end goal. The long way to go is less scary when you focus on each day. You just focus on each day, and then you focus on what does the week look like ahead of this week. Being a little bit more studious in your efforts to contributing just little by little the changes required to action what you need to action. And if you find yourself, getting stuck with inaction, so no action at all, question that. Hold yourself accountable for the fact that you haven't acted upon anything you've been talking about. You've got to write it down. You have to remind yourself. You have to set alarms. You have to be firm with yourself if you're trying to make a change that is significant over time. It obviously becomes less scary when you break it down into small, bite-sized pieces. It becomes more manageable and less stressful. That's what the most important part of this is that this big goal will not be so stressful if you think about it as multiple mini projects that make up that large, exciting goal towards the end. Be okay with making mistakes and learning. It's humbling, and it actually helps you achieve the important things long term. So I mention this a lot in podcasts and vlogs about making mistakes towards a big, larger goal. It might mean that It might mean that when you are saving for the house, or when you are working towards your physique that you really want to achieve or accomplish, or you've had to put something off because something's come up and you feel disappointed with yourself, or you feel disheartened, or you feel as though life isn't fair, you've got to normalize that with big projects, it looks really appealing from a distance. You know, when you see something from a distance, I really want that big, exciting adventure. I want to have it in my hands. I want to talk to people about it, etc. It looks really appealing, but there are going to be numerous setbacks. You're going to have to learn quite a lot. You're going to have to be okay with being frustrated. You probably will need to tell people that you are frustrated. Lots of communication, lots of seeking out support, and lots of work and effort is what's required for big goals. If you are not willing to do that, if you're not willing to action, if you're not willing to make small changes, then you will have to be okay with the constant internal disappointment that you're feeling. Otherwise, be okay with the idea that small, meaningless, monotonous, boring tasks can often add up to the most exciting times of your life. So sometimes it's about thinking of life in reverse. It's not about what we have right now, but what we are working towards. And trust me, that feeling is like no other. Actually getting what you want in life because you put the work in, because you've actioned it, is like nothing else. And be okay with it not taking the amount of time that you maybe initially set out for it. It could be shorter, it could be longer, but the flexibility that you have to create in your life, the accountability that you have to create, it all starts with you. It's all an internal journey, and it's setting yourself up. So remember that lots of planning is involved behind achieving a big goal, and there is no secret, okay? It is that tip of the iceberg. When you see the tip of the iceberg above the water that a successful person has achieved, you think, wow, that's amazing, I want that. Just remember that you don't see everything beneath the surface that they did to acquire it. All right, that's it from me. Hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a happy new year. And on that note, obviously with the big goal setting, I want you to look forward to the new year, obviously. Make some big goals for yourself, sure, but just remember that it's the daily efforts, it's the daily planning, it's the short term, and it's the delayed gratification that you've got to focus on. So the short term planning for that delayed gratification to get to where you want to be. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Looking forward to doing another vlog for you soon. Thanks, bye.